The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with nervous energy, as representatives from dozens of species gathered for what many considered the most important meeting in galactic history. Ambassador Zethkri of the Altarian Empire adjusted his crystalline breathing apparatus and glanced around the massive circular room. The holographic displays showed star maps, trade routes, and military deployments across known space. "Order! Order!" called out Chancellor Vexitar, her forearms gesturing dramatically as her translator device converted her clicks and whistles into standard galactic. "We are here to discuss the human situation once and for all." A collective shudder ran through the assembly. The humans, those strange bipedal creatures from the outer rim, who had somehow managed to become the galaxy's unofficial problem solvers, peacekeepers, and general nuisances in just 3 short centuries since first contact. Ambassador Quolith from the Hegemony of Worlds raised one of his many tentacles. "Chancellor, with respect, we have been discussing the human situation for the past 50 years. They continue to interfere in conflicts that are none of their business, arrive at disasters before our own emergency services, and somehow always seem to know exactly what technology we need before we even realize we need it ourselves." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. It was true. The humans had this annoying habit of showing up wherever there was trouble, usually with exactly the right equipment and knowledge to help, despite supposedly being one of the youngest spacefaring civilizations in the galaxy. "Remember the Kethmori plague?" whispered Ambassador Sylvana to her aide. "My people were dying by the millions. Our best scientists said it would take decades to find a cure. Then 3 human medical ships arrived with something they called vaccine prototypes and had the outbreak contained within weeks." "Or the Nexus Station incident," added another voice. "When those quantum terrorists threatened to collapse the entire sector's hyperspace network. Somehow a human engineering team just happened to be in the area with experimental stabilization equipment that perfectly countered the threat." Chancellor Vextar's tail twitched with irritation. "The pattern is undeniable. Every major crisis, every technological breakthrough we desperately need, every military conflict that requires precise intervention, the humans are always there first. Always prepared, always with exactly the right solution." Ambassador Zethkri stood up, his tall frame casting shadows across the chamber floor. "I have served in diplomatic corps for over 2 centuries. I have seen empires rise and fall, but I have never encountered a species quite like humanity. They claim to be explorers, traders, and diplomats, yet their cargo ships carry enough firepower to level planets. Their research vessels are equipped with technology that our military can barely comprehend. Their civilian colonies have defensive capabilities that rival our fortress worlds." The chamber fell silent as his words sank in. It was something everyone had noticed, but few dared to speak aloud. "And yet," continued Zethkri, "they maintain this facade of being simple, curious creatures who just want to help and learn. They send their diplomats to our councils with wide-eyed wonder, asking basic questions about galactic politics as if they are complete newcomers. They act surprised when their improvised solutions to our problems work perfectly." A small creature from the collective spoke up, its voice barely audible through the translator. "What if they are not pretending? What if they truly are what they appear to be?" The suggestion was met with skeptical silence. "Consider their military actions," said General Mordak, the hegemony's chief military advisor. "In the border wars, they claimed to be sending a small peacekeeping force. 3 ships, they said. 3 ships that somehow coordinated the withdrawal of 2 entire invasion fleets and restored peace to a sector that had been at war for generations. When we analyzed the battle recordings, those 3 ships moved with precision that suggested coordination from a massive command network, yet our sensors detected nothing. Their technology is equally puzzling," added Chief Scientist Kelnara. "They share freely with us, claiming it is all standard human science. Yet when we try to reverse engineer their devices, we discover principles that challenge everything we thought we knew about physics. Their computers process information in ways that should be impossible. Their engines manipulate space-time with casual efficiency. Their weapons fire projectiles that seem to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously." Ambassador Quoleth's tentacles writhed nervously. "I have spoken with human traders who casually mention having mapped star systems that our best explorers declared unreachable. They speak of resources from impossible locations, of establishing trade routes through regions of space where the laws of physics break down. Yet they act as if this is perfectly normal. "The economic implications alone should terrify us," muttered Treasurer Bilcox. "Human trade ships appear in our markets with goods that should not exist. Rare elements from dead stars, organic compounds that could only form in impossible conditions, manufactured items with atomic structures that defy our understanding of matter itself. They sell these things for reasonable prices, claiming they are common Earth exports." Chancellor Vextar raised her primary arms for attention. "What troubles me most is their cultural adaptability. Every species they encounter, they somehow understand perfectly within days. They adopt our customs, speak our languages, anticipate our needs. It is as if they have studied us for centuries before making first contact. And their lifespan records are inconsistent," noted records keeper Nargoth. "Official human documents show normal biological lifespans of roughly 100 Earth years. Yet I have personally met human diplomats who have been active in galactic politics for over 3 centuries. When questioned, they claim this is due to medical advances or genetic diversity, in ways that make perfect sense but explain nothing." The chamber erupted in concerned chatter as representatives shared their own experiences with human inconsistencies. Stories of human civilians who demonstrated impossible knowledge, human children who casually solved mathematical problems that stumped advanced artificial intelligences, human artists who created works that incorporated cultural references from civilizations that had been extinct for millennia. "The question before us today," announced Chancellor Vextar, her voice cutting through the noise, "is not whether humans are hiding their true capabilities. The evidence makes that undeniable. The question is what we should do about it." The silence that followed was heavy with implications. In a galaxy where power determined survival, the revelation that humanity might be far more advanced than they pretended had consequences that rippled through every alliance, every trade agreement, every military strategy. "Perhaps," suggested Ambassador Zethkri quietly, "we should ask ourselves why a species with such obvious capabilities would choose to pretend otherwise. What purpose does this deception serve? And more importantly, what happens to the rest of us when they decide to stop pretending?" Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the exploration vessel Wanderer's Dream, watching the swirling chaos of the Maelstrom Nebula through the main view screen. Her crew worked quietly at their stations, but she could feel their tension. According to every galactic authority, the space ahead of them was completely impassable. "Ma'am," called Lieutenant Torres from the navigation station, "we're receiving another priority transmission from the Altarian fleet. They're requesting immediate assistance with their trapped colony ship." Sarah nodded calmly. The Altarians had been trying to rescue their people for 6 months. The colony transport had been caught in a gravitational anomaly during what should have been a routine hyperspace jump. Now, it sat trapped in a pocket of twisted spacetime where rescue was supposedly impossible. "How many ships have they sent in already?" asked Commander Liu, the ship's first officer. 17, replied Torres. "All had to turn back. The spacetime distortions make navigation impossible, and the energy fields disable most technology. The Altarian fleet commander says they've accepted that the colonists are lost." Sarah smiled slightly. "Well, we can't have that. Helm, plot a course directly into the nebula. Standard approach." The bridge crew exchanged glances. To them, this was just another rescue mission. They had no idea that what they were about to do was considered impossible by the rest of the galaxy. "Captain," said Science Officer Park, "I'm reading some interesting quantum fluctuations in there. The gravitational fields are actually quite beautiful when you map them properly. It's like a 4-dimensional maze." "Any concerns about the radiation?" asked Commander Liu. "Nothing our shields can't handle," Park replied cheerfully. "Though we might want to recalibrate the deflector array for multiphase particles. I've never seen naturally occurring antichronoton streams this complex." Sarah nodded as if these were perfectly normal considerations. "Do it. And Park, see if you can map the underlying pattern. I have a feeling there's an elegant solution to this." As the Wanderer's Dream entered the nebula, the Altarian fleet watched in amazement. On their sensors, the human ship simply vanished into the chaotic energy storms that had defeated their best vessels. Inside the nebula, the human crew worked with calm efficiency. The gravitational anomalies that had trapped the Altarian colony Ship were indeed complex, but to the humans they were simply another interesting puzzle. Found them, announced Torres. The colony ship is caught in a stable gravitational bubble about 40 million kilometers from our current position. The bubble is actually protecting them from the worst effects of the anomaly. Clever, murmured Park, studying his readings. The natural gravitational fields are acting like a protective shell. The colonists are probably experiencing normal time flow, while the universe outside their bubble is completely chaotic. Sarah studied the tactical display. Options for extraction? We'd could use a gravitational tether, suggested Torres. Project a controlled gravity field and slowly pull them out. Or we could destabilize the bubble in a controlled fashion, added Park. Create a cascade effect that would push them back into normal space. Commander Liu frowned. Both options sound incredibly dangerous. What if we make things worse? Sarah laughed softly. Liu, we're humans. Making things that should be impossible look easy is what we do. Park, how long to calculate the precise gravitational harmonics needed for the tether approach? Give me 10 minutes, Park replied, already working at his console. What none of them mentioned, because it seemed perfectly normal to them, was that the calculations Park was performing would have required the galaxy's most powerful supercomputers weeks to complete. The gravitational mathematics involved were so complex that most species hadn't even discovered the relevant physics principles. Meanwhile, on the Altarian flagship, Fleet Commander Zethkol paced anxiously. Any word from the human vessel? He asked his communications officer. Nothing, sir. They've been silent since entering the nebula 12 minutes ago. Our sensors show only chaotic energy readings. 12 minutes, muttered Zethkol. They've lasted longer than any of our ships. His science advisor, a young Altarian named Kethvri, looked up from her console. Sir, I'm detecting some unusual gravitational fluctuations from deep within the nebula. The patterns are too regular to be natural. The humans are doing something, Zethkol said grimly. But what could they possibly accomplish that our best ships couldn't? The answer came 20 minutes later, when the Wanderer's dream emerged. From the nebula, towing the missing colony ship behind it in a bubble of perfectly controlled artificial gravity, the Altarian fleet was speechless. The rescue they had declared impossible had been completed in less than an hour. Altarian fleet, this is Captain Chen, came Sarah's voice over the communication channel, sounding casually pleased. We found your people. They're all safe and healthy. The gravitational bubble actually protected them quite well. Fleet Commander Zethkol struggled to find words. Captain Chen, how did you? The navigation alone should have been impossible. Oh, that? Sarah's tone was dismissive. The gravitational fields in there are actually quite stable once you understand the underlying mathematics. My science officer mapped the pattern in just a few minutes. Beautiful work of nature, really. The mathematics? Zethkol's voice cracked slightly. Captain, our best computers worked for months trying to model those gravitational fields. They declared the problem unsolvable. There was a pause before Sarah replied, and when she did, her voice carried that particular tone of polite confusion that humans used when they didn't understand why something was considered difficult. Really? That's odd. It's just basic multidimensional calculus. Did your computers account for the quantum interference patterns? The gravitational waves create a fairly obvious resonance cascade when you factor in the local dark matter density. Zethkol looked around his bridge at his crew's stunned faces. Basic multidimensional calculus? The quantum interference patterns that had baffled their greatest scientists for months were obvious to the humans? Captain, Zethkol said carefully, would it be possible for my science teams to review your navigation data? For academic purposes, of course. Of course, Sarah replied cheerfully. Always happy to share. Though I should warn you, our computers process information a bit differently than most galactic standard systems. You might need to convert the data formats. What Sarah didn't mention was that the basic calculations her ship had performed represented mathematical concepts that wouldn't be discovered by Altarian science for another 1,000 years. The obvious patterns her crew had spotted required perception of 11-dimensional space-time interactions. As the combined fleet headed back to Altarian space, Zethkol found himself staring at the data his science teams had received from the humans. The mathematical models were elegant, beautiful, and completely incomprehensible. "Sir," whispered Kethavri, "these calculations show an understanding of gravitational mechanics that exceeds our theoretical maximums. According to our models, this level of mathematical sophistication should require at least 10,000 years of advanced research. And yet," Zethkol murmured, "the humans treated it like a simple navigation problem." He watched the human ship flying alongside his fleet, its crew probably going about their normal duties, completely unaware that they had just casually demonstrated capabilities that redefined what was possible in galactic civilization. "Kethavri," he said quietly, "send a coded message to Galactic Command. Tell them we need to convene another emergency session. The human question is becoming more urgent." As his message was transmitted across galactic communication networks, similar reports were arriving from dozens of other locations. Reports of humans casually solving impossible problems, demonstrating technology that shouldn't exist, and displaying knowledge that defied explanation. The galaxy was slowly waking up to a terrifying possibility. Perhaps humanity had been hiding their true nature for far longer than anyone had imagined. Dr. Elena Vasquez walked through the corridors of Research Station Prometheus, reviewing the daily reports on her tablet. As the station's chief administrator, she oversaw what was officially designated as humanity's primary deep space research facility. What the rest of the galaxy didn't know was that Prometheus was actually one of humanity's smaller and more basic installations. "Dr. Vasquez," called out her assistant, David Kim, hurrying to catch up. "We've got another delegation arriving. The Hegemony Council wants to tour our advanced laboratories." Elena suppressed a smile. "Which laboratories are we showing them this time?" "The Basic Physics Lab and the Elementary Materials Science Division. Same as always. We've hidden everything above level 3. The station had 12 research levels, but visiting aliens were only ever shown the first 2. Even those basic levels contained technology that impressed galactic visitors, though to human scientists they represented knowledge that was centuries old. "Any particular focus for this visit?" Elena asked. "They're especially interested in our medical research. Apparently the cure we provided for the Kethmori plague has raised some questions." Elena nodded. The plague cure had been a careful balancing act. They had provided an effective solution while making it seem like humanity had simply gotten lucky with some experimental research. In reality, the cure had been developed using medical knowledge that was so advanced it might as well have been magic to most galactic civilizations. "Dr. Vasquez to level 7, came a voice over the intercom. "We have a situation in the Temporal Dynamics Lab," Elena sighed. "David, handle the delegation when they arrive. Give them the standard tour. I need to check on something downstairs." She took the express elevator to level 7, which existed in a carefully controlled pocket of accelerated time. The elevator trip that took 30 seconds in normal space allowed for several hours of work in the lab's time stream. "What's the problem?" she asked Dr. Martinez, the temporal research chief. "We've been monitoring galactic communications," Martinez replied, gesturing to a wall display showing intercepted transmissions from across known space. "The Galactic Council is getting suspicious. Look at this." The display showed dozens of reports from various species, all describing encounters with human technology or knowledge that seemed impossibly advanced. Pattern recognition software highlighted the growing frequency of such reports. "They're starting to compare notes," Elena observed. "How long before they put the pieces together?" "At their current rate of information sharing, maybe 6 months before they reach an undeniable conclusion. Less if they start actively investigating." Elena studied the data streams. Humanity had been walking a careful line for centuries, providing just enough help to be valuable allies while concealing the true extent of their capabilities. But the galaxy was getting smarter, and the gaps in their cover story were becoming harder to explain. "Dr. Vasquez," called another researcher, "we're detecting some interesting developments in the Altarian sector. It looks like they've been trying to reverse engineer the gravitational technology Captain Chen used last week." Elena walked over to the quantum monitoring station, where screens showed real-time analysis of technological development across the galaxy. The Altarians had indeed been studying the navigation data from the Nebula rescue, but their attempts to understand it were revealing the massive gaps in their knowledge. They're trying to build mathematical models based on our basic calculations, the researcher explained. But they don't have the fundamental physics background to understand what they're looking at. It's like watching someone try to build a computer using Stone Age tools. What about the other species? The hegemony has been analyzing our medical technology. They've identified 17 different scientific principles that shouldn't exist according to their understanding of biology. The collective is convinced our computers are using some form of impossible quantum processing. Elena rubbed her temples. The deception was becoming increasingly complex to maintain. "Ma'am," said David's voice over the intercom, "the hegemony delegation is here. They're asking about our experimental faster-than-light communication system." Elena almost laughed. The communication system the aliens considered experimental was actually the same basic quantum entanglement network that every human child learned about in elementary school. But to the galaxy's most advanced species, it represented technology that was theoretically impossible. "I'll be right up," she replied. "Martinez, I want a full analysis of how long we can maintain current concealment protocols. Factor in their improving pattern recognition capabilities." She took the elevator back to level 2, where the hegemony delegation was waiting. The group consisted of their finest scientists, led by Chief Researcher Veltar, whose reputation for brilliance was known throughout the galaxy. "Dr. Vasquez," Veltar exclaimed, his translator converting his excitement into standard galactic. "We are honored to visit your remarkable facility. The reports of your achievements have astounded our scientific community." "Thank you," Elena replied warmly. "We're always happy to share our research with our galactic neighbors, though I should mention that most of what we do here is still quite experimental." As she led the group through the basic physics laboratory, Elena watched their reactions carefully. The aliens were fascinated by technology that human scientists would have considered primitive, taking detailed notes and asking questions that revealed the enormous gaps between human and galactic knowledge. "This particle accelerator," Veltar said, studying a device that was actually a simplified training model. "It appears to manipulate subatomic structures in ways that our theory suggests should be impossible." "Oh, that," Elena said casually. "It's just a basic research tool. We use it for elementary particle physics experiments. Nothing too complex." What she didn't mention was that the elementary experiments being performed in this lab involved manipulating matter at the quantum level in ways that most galactic civilizations wouldn't discover for millennia. "And this computer system," another researcher asked, "how does it process calculations so quickly?" Helena looked at the device in question, which was actually just a standard human tablet running basic educational software. Standard quantum processing. Every human ship has similar systems for basic navigation and communication. The aliens exchanged amazed glances. What they were looking at as an incredible breakthrough was, to humans, roughly equivalent to a pocket calculator. As the tour continued, Elena began to understand the true scope of the problem humanity was facing. The gaps between human and galactic technology weren't just large. They were so vast that even humanity's most basic equipment seemed impossibly advanced to the galaxy's most brilliant minds. "Dr. Vasquez," Veltar said as the tour concluded, "I must ask directly. Some of our researchers believe that human technology suggests scientific principles that are far beyond what should be possible for a species that achieved spaceflight only 3 centuries ago. How do you explain these remarkable advances?" Elena had prepared for this question, but looking at Veltar's intelligent eyes, she realized that the standard explanations were wearing thin. "We've been fortunate," she said carefully. "Human scientific development has been quite rapid, and we've had some lucky breakthroughs. Plus, we've learned a great deal from our interactions with other galactic species." It was technically true, though it left out the fact that human scientific development had been rapid because they had started from a baseline that was already thousands of years ahead of galactic standards. As the delegation departed, Elena returned to level 7 to review Martinez's analysis. "Well," she asked, "based on current trends, we have approximately 4 months before the Galactic Council reaches a consensus that humanity is deliberately concealing advanced capabilities. After that, they'll either demand full disclosure or consider us a potential threat." Elena stared at the projections. Humanity had always known this day would come eventually. The question was what to do about it. "Start preparing the contingency protocols," she ordered, "and send a message to Earth Command. Tell them it might be time to have a very honest conversation with our galactic neighbors. As the message was transmitted through humanity's true communication network, one that could reach Earth instantaneously regardless of distance, Elena wondered how the galaxy would react when they learned the truth about who they had been sharing space with for the past 3 centuries. Ambassador Marcus Webb sat in his private office aboard the diplomatic station orbiting Galactic Council headquarters, reading through intelligence reports that made his head spin. As humanity's senior diplomatic representative, he had access to information that painted a very different picture of galactic affairs than what most humans realized. His assistant, Jennifer Park, entered with a concerned expression. "Sir, we've intercepted communications from 17 different species. They're all sharing data about human technological capabilities. The pattern analysis is getting sophisticated." Marcus pulled up the intelligence summaries on his holographic display. The Altarians had shared their navigation data from the Nebula rescue. The hegemony had distributed medical research showing impossible biological principles. The collective had published papers on human computer systems that defied their understanding of quantum mechanics. "How bad is it?" he asked. "They're calling it the human paradox," Jennifer replied. "There's a growing consensus that either humans are the most naturally gifted species in galactic history, or we've been lying about our capabilities for 3 centuries. Marcus leaned back in his chair. As a senior diplomat, he knew the truth that most humans took for granted. Earth wasn't just another planet that had recently achieved spaceflight. Humanity had been quietly observing and studying galactic civilization for over 5,000 years before making first contact. "What's the timeline for full disclosure?" he asked. "The Galactic Council has scheduled an emergency session for next week. They plan to demand complete transparency from all human representatives. If we refuse or if our explanations are unsatisfactory, they're prepared to classify humanity as a potential galactic threat." Marcus rubbed his temples. The situation was developing exactly as Earth Command had predicted it eventually would. Humanity's policy of benevolent deception had been successful for centuries, but it was always intended as a temporary measure. "Sir," Jennifer continued, "there's something else. We've detected unusual military movements throughout the galaxy. Several species are quietly repositioning their fleets." "Repositioning how?" "Defensive formations around major population centers. It appears they're preparing for the possibility that humanity might be hostile." Marcus felt a chill. The irony was bitter. Humanity had spent centuries carefully concealing their true capabilities, specifically to avoid this kind of fear. They had gone to extraordinary lengths to appear harmless and helpful, providing just enough assistance to be valuable allies without revealing the vast gulf between human and galactic technology. "Get me a secure connection to Admiral Chen on the Harmony," he ordered. The holographic display shimmered and resolved into the image of Admiral Sarah Chen, sister to the captain who had rescued the Altarian colonists. She was aboard humanity's primary diplomatic escort vessel, which the galaxy believed was a simple exploration ship. "Marcus," she said grimly, "I assume you've seen the intelligence reports, all of them. Sarah, how many ships do we have in the region?" "Officially, just the Harmony and 3 escort vessels. Unofficially?" She paused. "We have enough firepower within a day's travel to end every military threat in this galaxy simultaneously." Marcus closed his eyes. The Harmony alone, disguised as a simple diplomatic vessel, carried weapons that could reshape solar systems. The escort vessels were each capable of single-handedly defeating entire galactic fleets. "And that was just the visible presence. Recommendations?" he asked. "Earth Command has been debating this scenario for decades," Admiral Chen replied. "The consensus is that partial disclosure might still be possible. We could reveal some of our capabilities while maintaining the fiction that we're simply more advanced than we initially appeared. And if that doesn't work? Full disclosure. Complete honesty about who we are and how long we've been watching." Marcus considered the implications. Full disclosure would mean admitting that humanity had been studying galactic civilization since before most of the current species had achieved spaceflight. It would mean revealing that human exploration ships had been present during every major galactic conflict, quietly ensuring that wars didn't escalate beyond recovery. It would mean acknowledging that humanity's entire relationship with galactic civilization had been based on a carefully maintained deception. What about the cultural shock? He asked. How do we tell them that we've been their silent guardians for millennia, without them feeling like children who've just discovered their parents have been watching them through hidden cameras? Admiral Chen's expression was sympathetic. That's your department, Marcus. Military strategy I can handle. Galactic psychology is why they pay you the big credits. After ending the call, Marcus walked to his office's observation deck and looked out at the bustling space station around Galactic Council headquarters. Thousands of ships from dozens of species came and went daily, representing the pinnacle of galactic civilization's achievement. What those ships' crews didn't know was that human observers had been present during the construction of this very station. Humanity had quietly provided technological assistance through intermediaries, ensuring that the station's systems were robust enough to handle the complex interactions of so many different species. Sir? Jennifer called from the communications console. We're receiving a priority message from the Galactic Council. They're requesting an immediate private meeting with all human representatives. All of them. Every human diplomat, trade representative, and cultural attaché in the galaxy. They want us all in one place. Marcus felt a moment of dark humor. If the Galactic Council was hoping to intimidate humanity by gathering all their representatives together, they had made a critical miscalculation. Every human diplomat in the galaxy was also a highly trained operative with access to technology that could evacuate them from any threat instantly. Schedule the meeting, he ordered, and send a coded message to Earth Command. Tell them Operation Revelation may be commencing ahead of schedule. As the message was transmitted through humanity's quantum communication network, it reached Earth in microseconds despite the thousands of light-years of distance. On Earth, the message was received by the Galactic Affairs Council, a group of individuals who had been planning for this moment since humanity first made contact with galactic civilization. The response came back within minutes. Approved. Initiate Protocol 7. Full disclosure authorized if necessary. Marcus smiled grimly. Protocol 7 had been developed over centuries of careful planning. It was designed to reveal humanity's true nature in a way that would minimize panic while demonstrating that humanity's intentions remained peaceful. Jennifer, he called, start preparing the disclosure packages. If we're going to tell them the truth, we might as well tell them all of it. All of it, sir? The observation period. The technological assistance we've provided through intermediaries. The number of galactic conflicts we've quietly prevented. The extent of our actual capabilities. And why we've been pretending to be harmless explorers for 3 centuries. Jennifer's eyes widened. Sir, that's going to change everything. Yes, Marcus agreed. But maybe it's time. The galaxy has grown up quite a bit since we first started watching. Perhaps they're ready to learn they haven't been alone as preparations began for what would either be the most successful diplomatic revelation in galactic history or the beginning of the greatest crisis the galaxy had ever faced. Marcus found himself wondering how different things might have been if humanity had chosen honesty from the beginning. But then again, he reflected, if humanity had revealed their true capabilities 3 centuries ago, would galactic civilization have developed its own strength and independence, or would they have become dependent children, never learning to solve their own problems? Perhaps Marcus thought the deception had been necessary. Perhaps the galaxy needed to believe they were equals before they could handle the truth about their protectors. Now they were about to find out. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council had never hosted a meeting quite like this one. Representatives from every major galactic civilization sat in tense silence as the human delegation entered. Ambassador Marcus Webb led the group, followed by 12 other human representatives who had been scattered across the galaxy. Chancellor Vextar called the session to order, her forearms trembling slightly with nervous energy. This emergency session has been convened to address questions regarding human technological capabilities and their implications for galactic security. Marcus remained standing as the formal charges were read. The assembled evidence was impressive in its thoroughness. 3 centuries of human activities had been analyzed, cross-referenced, and compiled into an undeniable pattern of technological superiority hidden behind a facade of helpful exploration. Ambassador Webb, Chancellor Vextar announced, the Galactic Council formally demands complete transparency regarding human capabilities, intentions, and the true nature of your species' relationship with galactic civilization. Marcus looked around the chamber, noting the defensive postures that barely concealed fear and the weapons that several delegates thought they had hidden. After centuries of careful diplomacy, this moment felt both inevitable and tragic. "Honorable representatives," he began, "I want to start by acknowledging that your suspicions are correct. Humanity has not been entirely honest about our capabilities or our history." A ripple of tension swept through the assembly. Several delegates reached for their communication devices, ready to alert their governments that their worst fears were being confirmed. "However," Marcus continued, "before you conclude that this deception makes us a threat, I ask that you consider why we chose to conceal our true nature." He activated a holographic projector that filled the center of the chamber with a three-dimensional star map. The display showed the galaxy as it had existed 5,000 years ago, when humanity first achieved true interstellar travel. "This is what we found when we first left our solar system," Marcus explained. "A galaxy filled with species in various stages of development, most barely beginning to explore beyond their home systems. We discovered civilizations that were brilliant and diverse, but also fragile and prone to conflicts that could have destroyed them." The star map shifted, showing the development of galactic civilization over millennia. Human observation posts appeared as tiny dots, carefully positioned to monitor without interfering. "We made a decision," Marcus said. "Rather than announce ourselves as a technologically superior species and risk becoming either conquerors or false gods, we chose to watch and learn. We wanted to understand who you were and who you could become." Ambassador Zethkri from the Altarian Empire stood up abruptly. "You've been spying on us for 5,000 years? Observing," Marcus corrected gently, "and occasionally helping in ways that appeared natural. When the Kethmori plague threatened to devastate 3-star systems, we didn't arrive with miraculous alien technology. We carefully introduced the knowledge needed to develop a cure through what appeared to be natural scientific breakthrough." The display showed dozens of similar interventions throughout galactic history, wars that had been quietly prevented, natural disasters where human technology had provided invisible assistance, scientific advances that had been carefully guided to appear as natural developments. Every conflict you've resolved peacefully, every technological breakthrough that came at exactly the right moment, every time your civilizations managed to avoid catastrophic mistakes, Marcus continued. Some of those successes were entirely your own, and some received subtle guidance from observers who wanted to see you succeed. Chief Scientist Kelnara from the Hegemony was studying the data with growing amazement. "The mathematical principles we've been struggling to understand in your technology, they're not recent developments. Our current technology is the result of approximately 15,000 years of scientific development," Marcus admitted. "When we made first contact 3 centuries ago, we were already capable of reshaping matter at the subatomic level, manipulating space-time, and processing information in ways that transcend classical physics." The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. 15,000 years of advancement beyond their current level. "But why reveal yourselves at all?" demanded General Morduk. "Why not continue watching from the shadows?" Marcus smiled sadly. "Because you've grown beyond the need for secret guardians. The galactic civilization we've been observing for 5 millennia has matured into something remarkable. You've developed your own systems of cooperation, your own methods of resolving conflicts, your own scientific traditions. You've become capable of standing on your own." The holographic display shifted to show current galactic civilization, the vast trade networks, the diplomatic protocols, the collaborative research projects, the cultural exchanges that had flourished without human interference. "Look at what you've accomplished," Marcus said with genuine pride. "The Galactic Council itself is proof of your progress. 3 centuries ago, most of your species barely tolerated each other. Now you work together, share knowledge, and solve problems collectively. You've created something beautiful." Ambassador Quolith raised a tentacle hesitantly. "The rescue missions, the technological assistance, the medical aid, none of that was accidental." "Some of it was," Marcus replied honestly. "Human nature includes a genuine desire to help others. But yes, much of our assistance was calculated to support your growth without creating dependency." Chancellor Vextar's tail twitched nervously. "And your military capabilities. If you've been this advanced for millennia, your weapons must be capable of ending any conventional conflict instantly." Admiral Chen's voice cut through the tension as she materialized via hologram from the Harmony. But they've never been used against galactic civilization, and they never will be unless someone forces our hand by threatening innocent lives. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had possessed overwhelming military superiority for the entire history of galactic civilization, and had never used it for conquest or domination. "We understand if you feel betrayed," Marcus said softly. "We understand if you're frightened. But I want you to know that our deception was never intended to harm you. We've spent 5,000 years learning to care about your civilizations, your cultures, your achievements. You're not subjects or experiments to us. You're family." Records keeper Nargoth spoke up from the archives section. "What happens now? Do you expect us to accept human oversight? Are we to become a protectorate?" "No," Marcus said firmly. "What happens now is up to you. We've prepared several options." The holographic display showed 3 different scenarios. In the first, humanity would gradually withdraw from galactic affairs, removing their hidden infrastructure and allowing galactic civilization to develop completely independently. In the second, they would maintain their current level of involvement, but with full transparency about their capabilities. In the third, they would offer a formal partnership with full sharing of technology and knowledge. "The choice is yours," Marcus said. "We've been your secret guardians for 5 millennia, but that relationship only worked because you didn't know about it. Now that you do, we can't continue the same way." Ambassador Silvana from the collective spoke carefully. "If we choose independence and we encounter threats we can't handle alone, we'll still be here," Admiral Chen answered. "We won't abandon you, but our role would change from secret guardians to allies who you can call upon when needed." Chancellor Vextar looked around the chamber at her fellow representatives. The fear was still there, but it was mixed now with wonder, confusion, and something that might have been relief. "You could have ruled us," she said quietly. "For 5,000 years you could have conquered and enslaved us all." Marcus nodded. "Yes, we could have. But ruling others has never been humanity's goal. We prefer partnership. We prefer friendship. Even with species so much less advanced than yourselves, especially with species who've shown us new ways of thinking, new forms of beauty, new approaches to problems we hadn't considered. You've taught us as much as we've taught you." The session continued for hours as representatives asked questions, demanded clarifications, and struggled to process the revelation that their entire understanding of galactic history needed to be rewritten. But as the discussions progressed, something remarkable began to happen. The fear started to fade, replaced by curiosity and, gradually, a sense of possibility. Perhaps several delegates began to think, this wasn't the end of galactic independence. Perhaps it was the beginning of something even greater. 1 year later, Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in the observation deck of New Prometheus Station, watching as the first joint human galactic research vessel prepared for its maiden voyage. The ship was a marvel of cooperative engineering, combining human technological advancement with the innovative approaches of 17 different galactic species. "Hard to believe how much has changed," said David Kim, joining her at the viewport. "A year ago we were hiding our basic laboratories. Now we're building starships together." Elena smiled as she watched Altarian engineers working alongside human technicians, their crystalline expertise in harmonic resonance perfectly complementing humanity's mastery of space-time manipulation. Hegemony biochemists were collaborating with human medical researchers to develop treatments that neither species could have created alone. "The vote was closer than I expected," Elena mused, referring to the Galactic Council's decision 6 months earlier. After weeks of heated debate, the galaxy had chosen a modified version of the partnership option. Rather than full technological sharing, which many species feared would overwhelm their own scientific traditions, they had opted for collaborative development. Human knowledge would be shared gradually, through joint projects that allowed galactic scientists to understand and contribute to the advancement process. "Dr. Vasquez," came a voice over the intercom. "Admiral Chen is here for the ceremony." Elena made her way to the station's main conference room, where representatives from across the galaxy had gathered for the launch of the joint research mission. The ship they were sending out was designed to explore the galactic core, a region that had been considered too dangerous for conventional vessels. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the podium, her uniform now bearing the insignia of the new joint galactic fleet. "Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all configurations," she began, Today marks a new chapter in galactic history. The audience included not just the familiar faces of galactic diplomats, but also human researchers who no longer had to hide their true expertise. Dr. Martinez from the Temporal Dynamics Lab sat next to a collective quantum theorist. Captain Torres, whose basic navigation skills had amazed the Altarians, was deep in conversation with hegemony military strategists. The vessel we're launching today represents something unprecedented, Admiral Chen continued. It's not human technology with galactic assistance, nor is it galactic engineering with human improvements. It's something new, created by minds working together in ways we never imagined possible. Elena watched the faces in the audience and saw wonder where there had once been fear. The transition hadn't been easy. Many species had struggled with the revelation that they had been unknowingly protected for millennia. Some had initially demanded that humanity withdraw completely from galactic affairs. But as the months passed and the reality of the partnership became clear, attitudes had shifted. The Altarians discovered that their mathematical insights, when combined with human computational power, could solve problems that neither species could tackle alone. The hegemony found that their biological research, enhanced by human medical technology, was making breakthroughs at an unprecedented pace. The mission you're witnessing today will take our joint crew into regions of space where the fundamental laws of physics begin to break down. Admiral Chen explained. It's a journey that would have been impossible for any single species, but together, we believe we can unlock mysteries that have puzzled the galaxy for millions of years. Ambassador Marcus Webb stood to address the assembly. His role had evolved from concealing human capabilities to facilitating their integration into galactic society. I've been asked to share some reflections on this past year, he said. When we first revealed the truth about humanity's history, many of you felt betrayed. You wondered if our friendship had been real or just another form of manipulation. He paused, looking around the room at faces that had become genuinely familiar over months of intense cooperation. What I can tell you now is that while our initial approach may have been deceptive, our respect and affection for your civilizations has always been real. Working openly with you this past year has been more rewarding than 5,000 years of secret observation. Chancellor Vextar, who had initially been one of the most suspicious voices in the council, raised one of her forearms. Ambassador Webb, there's something many of us have wondered about. Now that we know the truth about human capabilities, we've realized that every crisis we've faced, every threat we've overcome, could have been solved instantly by your people. Why did you let us struggle? Why didn't you simply fix our problems? Marcus considered the question carefully. Because struggles make you stronger. Because solving your own problems builds confidence and capability. Because we wanted you to become the remarkable civilizations you are today, not dependent children who never learned to stand on their own. Even when people were dying? Pressed General Mordak. Especially then, Marcus replied soberly. Every time we intervened directly, we robbed you of the opportunity to develop your own solutions. When we provided subtle guidance instead of obvious answers, you grew stronger. The galaxy we see today, capable of this kind of cooperation and innovation, exists because you learned to save yourselves. Dr. Kelnara from the Hegemony Scientific Council stood up. I have a confession to make. For the past 6 months, our researchers have been working with human scientists on medical projects. We've made more progress in those 6 months than in the previous century of independent research. And yet, added Chief Engineer Tokval from the collective, our engineering teams report that human scientists have adopted 17 of our manufacturing techniques and 12 of our design principles. They claim these innovations have improved their own technology significantly. Elena felt a warm satisfaction hearing these reports. The partnership was working exactly as humanity had hoped. Rather than simply absorbing human technology, galactic species were contributing their own insights and approaches, creating hybrid solutions that were better than anything either side could have developed alone. The launch window is approaching, announced the station's communications officer. The assembly moved to the observation decks to watch as the joint research vessel powered up its hybrid drive system. The ship itself was a testament to cooperative engineering. Its hull incorporated Altarian crystalline technology for harmonic stability, hegemony bioadaptive systems for crew comfort, collective distributed processing networks for navigation, and human spacetime manipulation drives for propulsion. Joint Research Vessel Synthesis. You are cleared for departure, came the voice of the station's traffic control. Acknowledged, Prometheus Station. Beginning departure sequence. Elena watched as the ship gracefully accelerated away from the station, its hybrid drive system creating patterns of light that had never been seen before in the galaxy. The vessel would spend the next 5 years exploring the galactic core, crewed by representatives from a dozen species and equipped with technology that represented the best that galactic civilization could offer. Dr. Vasquez, said a familiar voice behind her. She turned to see Commander Liu, formerly from the Wanderer's Dream, now serving as the liaison between human fleet operations and galactic naval commands. Commander, how are the integration programs progressing? Better than expected, Liu replied. We've got joint crews operating on 70 ships now. The learning curve is steep, but the results are impressive. Turns out that hegemony tactical thinking combined with human technology creates some very effective solutions. Any problems with the cultural differences? Fewer than we anticipated. It helps that most galactic species already had experience working together through the Council. Adding humans to the mix was just one more variable in an already complex equation. Elena nodded, watching as more ships departed from the station on various missions. Each vessel now carried mixed crews. Each mission combined different technological approaches, and each success strengthened the bonds between the species involved. Commander, she said thoughtfully, do you ever wonder what would have happened if we'd been honest from the beginning? Liu considered the question. Sometimes, but then I look at what galactic civilization has accomplished on its own, and I think we made the right choice. If we'd announced ourselves as technological superiors 5,000 years ago, would the Galactic Council exist? Would these species have learned to cooperate with each other, or would they have become dependent on us to solve every problem? And now? Now they're strong enough to be true partners. They don't need us to solve their problems, but working together, we can solve problems that none of us could handle alone. As the ceremony concluded and the delegates began to disperse, Elena found herself thinking about the future. The revelation of humanity's true nature had changed everything, but perhaps in the best possible way. The galaxy was no longer divided between the observers and the observed, the protectors and the protected. It had become something new. A true cooperative civilization where different forms of intelligence and different approaches to problems could combine to create solutions that transcended what any single species could achieve. Dr. Vasquez, came a transmission from the departing research vessel. This is Captain Chen aboard the